Daeho stood in his garden and watched the purple flowers bloom. The morning sun felt warm on his fur as he picked the healing plants that would help sick children in the next village. He had been doing this work for 20 years now. The Kalari. People were known across the galaxy for their plant medicine. Their world of Nethvar was peaceful and green. The humans sent another message, Sunmi called from the communication building. She was young and smart, always working with the big machines that talk to other worlds. They want more of the red leaf medicine for their sick people. Daeho smiled. The humans were good friends. 3 years ago, a terrible sickness had killed millions of them. The Kalari had worked day and night to make medicine that could save human lives. It had worked. Now the humans called the Kalari their closest allies. Tell them we will send what they need, Daeho said. He put the healing plants in his basket. The Kalari way was always to help others. They did not fight wars or build weapons. They grew things that healed and helped. Sunmi went back to her machines. The big dish on top of the building turned toward the stars. Messages traveled between worlds every day. The Kalari traded their medicine for things they needed. Everyone was happy with this way of life, but something was wrong that morning. The sky looked different. Dark shapes moved between the clouds. They were too big to be normal ships. Daeho! Sunmi's voice was scared now. Come quickly! He ran to the communication building. Sunmi was staring at her screen with wide eyes. The screen showed many red dots moving toward their world. Each dot was a ship. But these were not trading ships or friendly visitors. They came from nowhere, Sunmi said. Her hands shook as she worked the controls. 30 big warships. They did not ask permission to land. They did not say who they are. Daeho felt cold fear in his stomach. The Kalari had no army. They had no weapons that could fight warships. Their world was protected only by treaties and friendship with other peaceful species. The first ship landed in the main city. It was huge and black like a metal mountain. The ground shook when it touched down. More ships followed. They landed in every major settlement on Nethvar. From the ships came creatures that Daeho had never seen before. They walked on 2 legs like the Kalari, but they looked like giant lizards. Their skin was dark green and covered in hard scales. They carried weapons that glowed with deadly energy. Vorthak, Sunmi whispered. She had found information about them in the computer. They are from the far edge of the galaxy. They take worlds by force and make slaves of everyone they find. The Vorthak soldiers moved quickly through the cities. They did not hurt anyone at first. They just pointed their weapons and told everyone to gather in the main squares. The Kalari obeyed because they had no choice. A loud voice spoke from speakers on the Vorthak ships. The voice was cold and hard like metal scraping stone. People of Nethvar, you now belong to the Vorthak Empire. You will work for us. You will obey our commands. Anyone who fights will die. Anyone who tries to hide will die. Your old life is over. Daeho and Sunmi watched from their building as Vorthak soldiers herded groups of Kalari toward the ships. Families were separated. Children cried for their parents. Old people fell down and could not get up. We have to call for help, Daeho said. Send a message to the humans. They will come. Sunmi's fingers flew over the controls, but red warning lights flashed on her screen. They are blocking our signals, she said. The Vorthak ships are stopping all messages from leaving our world. Through the window, they could see Vorthak soldiers destroying communication dishes in the city. The big metal towers that carried messages to the stars were blown apart with energy weapons. There, Sunmi pointed to a small dish hidden behind their building. That one still works. It is old and weak, but maybe... She ran outside and connected cables to the hidden dish. Daeho helped her aim it toward the part of space where human worlds could be found. The dish was so small that any message would be very weak. It might not reach anyone. But they had to try. Sunmi spoke into the microphone. Her voice was calm, even though her hands still shook. This is Nethvar calling any human ships. The Vorthak have taken our world. They are making us slaves. They are hurting our people. Please, we helped you when your people were sick. We gave you medicine that saved millions of lives. Don't forget us. Please don't forget us. She sent the message, again and again. Each time, the signal got weaker as Vorthak interference grew stronger. Finally, the dish stopped working completely. Did anyone hear us? Deho asked. I don't know, Sunmi said. The message was very weak. It might take months to reach human space. And even if it does... She did not finish the sentence. They both knew the truth. Nethavar was very far from human worlds. It would take a long time for help to come. If help came at all, the days that followed were like a nightmare. The Vorthak built camps where they forced the Kalari to work. They dug deep holes in the ground to mine metal and crystals. The work was hard and dangerous. Many Kalari got sick or hurt, but the Vorthak did not care. Worse things happened in the special buildings that the Vorthak built. Scientists in white coats took Kalari inside those buildings. The Kalari who went in never came out. Strange sounds came from inside at night, sounds of pain and fear. Commander Vextar was the leader of the Vorthak on Nethvar. He was bigger than the other soldiers, and his scales were darker. He had cold yellow eyes that looked at the Kalari like they were not real people. Your species is perfect for our research, he told a group of Kalari leaders. You heal quickly. You are intelligent but not violent. You will help us create new weapons and new medicines, whether you want to or not. Months passed, then years. The beautiful world of Nethvar became gray and ugly. The green fields were dug up for mines. The clean rivers became dirty with chemical waste. The sky was always dark with smoke from Vorthak factories. Many Kalari died from overwork, disease, or the terrible experiments. Families were broken apart. Hope began to fade like a dying fire. Deho aged quickly in the labor camp. His beautiful garden was gone, replaced by ugly metal buildings. His hands, once gentle with healing plants, were now rough and bleeding from digging in the mines. Sunmi worked in the communication center, forced to help the Vorthak send messages to their home worlds. She watched for any sign that her desperate call for help had been heard, but no answer ever came. 3 years after the invasion, Deho sat with Sunmi in their small prison cell. They were both thin and tired. Around them, other Kalari slept on hard beds or stared at the walls with empty eyes. Do you think the humans got our message? Sunmi asked. She was much older now, though she was still young in years. Deho was quiet for a long time. He looked at his hands and remembered the purple flowers in his garden. He remembered the good days when helping others was the most important thing in the world. No, he said finally. The humans have forgotten us. We are alone now. We must accept that help will never come. Sunmi nodded sadly. The last piece of communication equipment she had hidden was broken now. There was no way to call for help anymore. They could only hope to survive each day. Outside their cell, Vorthak guards marched past. Their heavy boots made loud sounds on the metal floor. Tomorrow would bring more work, more pain, more suffering. And still, no rescue would come. The Kalari had given up hope. They believed they were truly forgotten by the galaxy. But somewhere in the darkness between the stars, their message was still traveling, still searching for someone who remembered friendship, someone who would not forget. The message arrived at Earth on a Tuesday morning. It was broken and weak, full of static noise that made it hard to understand. The computer system almost threw it away as junk data, but something made the operator look twice. Lieutenant Jae Sung. Cho was working the night shift at the Deep Space Communications Center. He had been listening to signals from faraway worlds for 5 years. Most messages were boring trade reports or routine check-ins from human colonies. This one was different. The Voice was desperate, scared, and it was speaking a language that Jae-sung recognized from his studies. It was Kalari, the deer-like people who had saved humanity during the Great Plague. "This is Nethvar calling any human ships," the voice said through the static. "The Vorthak have taken our world. They are making us slaves. They are hurting our people. Please, we helped you when your people were sick. Please don't forget us." Jae-sung played the message 3 times. Each time, his heart beat faster. The Kalari were in trouble, big trouble, and they were asking humanity for help. He called Dr. Yoonji Park right away. She was one of the scientists who had worked with the Kalari during the plague. If anyone would know what to do, it would be her. Dr. Park arrived at the communication center within an hour. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but when she heard the message, her face became very serious. "That's Daeho's voice," she said. "I worked with him during the plague research. He's a good person. If he's asking for help, then things are very bad on Nethvar." "What do we know about the Vorthak?" Jae-sung asked. Dr. Park pulled up files on her computer. "They're from the edge of the galaxy. Very militaristic. They believe in genetic superiority and think other species are inferior. They've been expanding their territory for the last 50 years. The files showed pictures of Vorthak soldiers. They looked like giant lizards with weapons and armor. Their ships were big and powerful. They were known for taking worlds by force and enslaving the populations." "We have to tell the Admiral," Dr. Park said. "Admiral Han Sol Kim commands the 7th Fleet. He might be able to help." Admiral Kim was a tall man with white hair and deep lines around his eyes. He had fought in many battles and seen much death, but he was also known for his honor and his care for innocent people. When Dr. Park played the message for him, the Admiral sat quietly for a long time. His office was filled with medals and pictures from his military career. On his desk was a photo of a young girl with a bright smile. "That's my daughter," he said, pointing to the photo. "She was 6 years old during the plague. The doctor said she would die. Then the Kalari medicine arrived. It saved her life. It saved 30 million human lives." "What can we do?" Dr. Park asked. "Nethvar is very far away. It would take months to get there. And it's in disputed space. 3 different alien governments claim that territory." Admiral Kim studied the star maps on his wall. Nethvar was indeed far from any human military base. Getting there would mean traveling through dangerous space controlled by unfriendly aliens. Any rescue mission would be extremely risky. "The Earth Council will never approve a military mission," the Admiral said. "They'll say it's too dangerous, too expensive, too likely to start a war with the Vorthak or the other species who claim that space." "So we do nothing?" Dr. Park asked. "We let our friends suffer and die?" The Admiral looked at his daughter's picture again. He remembered the dark days of the plague when hospitals were full of dying children. He remembered the relief when the Kalari medicine worked. The Kalari had risked everything to help humanity. Now they needed help in return. "No," he said quietly. "We don't do nothing." Over the next few weeks, Admiral Kim began to plan. But this would not be an official mission. The Earth Council had already refused to approve any rescue attempt, so Kim would have to work in secret. He started by talking to old friends in the military, officers he had served with, soldiers he had saved, captains who owed him favors. He told them about the Kalari message, about the debt humanity owed, about the innocent people suffering under Vorthak rule. Captain Minho Lee was the first to volunteer. He commanded an elite special forces unit, trained for the most dangerous missions. His soldiers were the best fighters in the human military. "My unit will come," Captain Lee said. "Every one of us owes our lives to Kalari medicine. My grandmother was saved during the plague. We'll follow." "You anywhere, Admiral." Word spread quietly through the fleet. The story of the Kalari message reached every ship and every crew. Soldiers began volunteering for a mission that officially did not exist. Ships started having maintenance problems that required them to leave their normal duties. Wing Commander. Taeyang Choi brought his entire fighter squadron. "We've been looking for a real fight," he said. "The Vorthaks sound like they need to be taught a lesson." Engineer Dong-Wook Lim modified weapons and equipment in secret. He created new armor-piercing rounds that could punch through Vorthak ship hulls. He improved the targeting systems on human fighters. He prepared for a war that the government said would never happen. Dr. Park worked with other scientists to study everything known about Vorthak technology and tactics. They found weaknesses in Vorthak ship designs. They learned about Vorthak military organization. They prepared detailed plans for the rescue operation. The Vorthak are used to fighting. Primitive species, Dr. Park explained to the planning committee. They've never faced human military technology. They won't expect our advanced weapons or our tactical flexibility. Slowly, a fleet began to form. 12 ships in total, all officially listed as being in maintenance or on training missions. The dreadnought Incheon's Wrath would lead them. 2 assault carriers full of fighters and landing craft. Several fast cruisers for scouting and support, and specialized stealth ships for intelligence gathering. The crews were all volunteers. Many of them had personal reasons to help the Kalari. Some had been saved by Kalari medicine. Others simply believed that good people should help other good people when they were in trouble. "This mission doesn't exist," Admiral Kim told the assembled captains. "If we're caught, the Earth government will deny everything. We'll be court-martialed, or worse. But the Kalari helped us when we needed it most. Now it's our turn to help them." "What about the Vorthak fleet?" Captain Lee asked. "Intelligence says they have at least 20 ships at Nethvar." "Then we'd better make sure we hit hard and fast," Admiral Kim replied. "We'll use every advantage we have, superior technology, better training, and the fact that they won't expect us to come." The planning took 2 months. Every detail was worked out carefully. How to travel to Nethvar without being detected, how to approach the planet, how to strike the Vorthak forces, how to evacuate as many Kalari as possible. They would have to travel through unmapped hyperspace routes to avoid Vorthak patrols. It would be dangerous, but it was the only way to maintain surprise. "We'll have one chance," Admiral Kim told his officers. "If we fail, the Kalari will pay the price, and probably no one will ever try to rescue them again." Finally, the day came to leave. The 12 ships met at a secret location far from Earth. The crews were nervous but determined. They all knew they might not come back, but they also knew they had to try. Intelligence Officer Jae-Sung Cho had been promoted and assigned to the mission. He would help coordinate communications and intelligence gathering. On his desk, he kept a copy of the original message from Daeho. "Don't forget us," he read again. "We won't forget," he promised the empty space around his ship. The fleet entered hyperspace on a course for Nethvar. It would take 3 months to get there using the hidden routes. 3 months to prepare for what might be the most important battle any of them had ever fought. Behind them, Earth continued its normal activities. Most people didn't know about the secret fleet or the rescue mission. The Earth Council was busy, with trade negotiations and political debates. They had forgotten about the small alien world that had once saved humanity. But Admiral Kim and his volunteers had not forgotten. They carried with them the hopes of an entire species. They carried the debt that honor demanded be repaid. And somewhere far ahead in the darkness, the Kalari continued to suffer under Vorthak rule. They had given up hope of rescue. They believed they were alone. They were wrong. The fleet moved steadily, through hyperspace toward its destination, toward justice, toward a reckoning that the Vorthak would never expect. Help was coming, and when it arrived, it would come with the full fury of humanity unleashed. Commander Vextar stood on the observation deck of his command ship and looked down at Nethvar. 3 years of occupation had changed the planet completely. Where once there had been green fields and crystal-clear rivers, now there were only gray mines and polluted water. The transformation pleased him. The Kalari population had been reduced to exactly where he wanted it. 2 million had become 800,000. The weak ones had died quickly. The survivors were easier to control and more useful for his purposes. "Sir," Lieutenant Kexmar approached with a data pad. "The High Command has sent new orders." Vextar read the message with growing satisfaction. The Vorthak Empire had decided that Nethvar was ready for the next phase, full colonization. That meant the remaining Kalari were no longer needed. "Excellent," Vextar said. "Begin final protocol immediately. I want all remaining Kalari gathered at the processing centers within 48 hours. Final protocol was the Vorthak term for complete extermination. The remaining Kalari would be killed quickly and efficiently. Their bodies would be processed into fertilizer for the new Vorthak colonies. Nothing would be wasted." In the labor camps, the Kalari sensed that something terrible was about to happen. Vorthak soldiers were more aggressive than usual. They separated, families more strictly. They moved people in large groups toward the industrial centers near the cities. Deho found himself in the same processing facility as Sunmi. They had not seen each other for months. Both looked much older and thinner than before. Sunmi's bright eyes had become dull. Deho's gentle hands were covered in scars. "They're going to kill us all," Sunmi whispered as they stood in line with hundreds of other Kalari. "I heard the guards talking. Final protocol. They're going to exterminate everyone." Deho nodded sadly. He had expected this day would come. The Vorthak had never intended to keep the Kalari alive forever. They had used them for labor and experiments. But now even that usefulness was over. In the crowd around them was a young Kalari named Young-Su. He was only 8 years old, born during the occupation. He had never known freedom or peace. He had never seen his world when it was green and beautiful. "Elder Deho." Young-Su tugged on Deho's sleeve. "The older children say we're going. To die." "Is that true?" Deho looked down at the child. Young-Su's fur was dirty and patchy from poor nutrition. His eyes were too big for his thin face. But there was still curiosity there. Still hope, even in this dark place. "I don't know," Deho said gently. "But I want to tell you something. Once our world was the most beautiful place in the galaxy. The sky was blue, not gray. The rivers ran clear and fish swam in them. Flowers grew everywhere in colors you can't imagine." "Really?" Young-Su's eyes grew wide. "Really? And the Kalari people were happy. We grew medicine that healed sick people across the galaxy. We shared our knowledge freely. We never hurt anyone." "Will it ever be like that again?" Deho was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled sadly. "I hope so, little one. I hope so." Bo-Ram, Deho's sister, was in a different part of the facility. She had organized a small group of Kalari who still believed in fighting back. They had hidden weapons made from mining tools. They planned to attack the guards when the final killing began. "We can't save everyone," Bo-Ram told her group. "But maybe we can save some. Maybe some of our children can escape into the wilderness." It was a desperate plan with little chance of success, but it was better than doing nothing. Meanwhile, far above the planet, something was happening that none of the Kalari could see. Human ships were moving into position at the edge of the system. They had arrived after 3 months of dangerous travel through hidden hyperspace routes. Captain Minho Lee commanded the stealth reconnaissance team that had been inserted into the system days earlier. His soldiers wore advanced camouflage suits that made them nearly invisible. They had been observing Vorthak installations and gathering intelligence. What they found made even experienced soldiers sick with anger. "Mass graves," Captain Lee reported, to Admiral Kim over encrypted communication. "Thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. And the processing facilities, they're designed for efficient killing." Intelligence Officer Jae-Sung Cho had intercepted Vorthak communications about final protocol. The translation made his blood run cold. "Admiral, they're going to start the extermination in less than 48 hours. All remaining Kalari will be dead within a week. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of the Incheon's Wrath and studied the tactical displays. His fleet was in position, hidden behind one of Nethvar's moons. 12 ships against a Vorthak force of 23. Not good. Odds, but they had advantages? Analysis? He asked his tactical officer. The Vorthak are spread out across the planet, Colonel Insu Park reported. Their main fleet is in high orbit. Ground installations are heavily defended, but they're not expecting an attack. Intelligence suggests they've never fought an enemy. With our technology level, Dr. Yunji Park had been studying Vorthak ship designs during the journey. Their shields are strong, but they have a weakness. The generators are located outside the main hull for better cooling. If we can target those, their ships will be defenseless, Admiral Kim finished. What about their ground forces? Approximately 10,000 Vorthak soldiers on the planet, Captain Lee reported. They're concentrated around the major cities and industrial centers. Most of the Kalari are being held in 5 main processing facilities. Wing Commander Taeyang Choi reviewed the fighter deployment plans. My squadrons can hit their orbital defenses first, clear the way for the main assault. But Admiral, there's not much time. If they start the extermination, then we stop them, Admiral Kim said firmly. All of them. Forever. The Admiral opened a communication channel to all ships in his fleet. Every captain, every crew member could hear his words. 3 years ago, the Kalari sent a message asking for help. Today, we answer that call. The creatures down there are not soldiers fighting for their homes. They are murderers preparing to commit genocide. We're going to stop them. He paused, thinking of his daughter's face. Thinking of the 30 million humans who had lived because the Kalari shared their medicine. The Kalari saved our children when plague threatened to destroy humanity. They asked for nothing in return except friendship. Now they need us, and we will not fail them. Engineer Dong-Wook Lim made final preparations to the weapons systems. The new armor-piercing rounds were loaded. The targeting computers were calibrated. Every ship in the fleet was ready for battle. Fleet status? Admiral Kim asked. All ships report ready for combat, sir, his communications officer replied. Very well. Open a channel to the Vorthak command ship. The main screen showed Commander Vextar's reptilian face. His cold yellow eyes showed only contempt when he saw a human officer. This is Admiral Han Sol Kim of the Terran Defense Force, the Admiral said in a calm, steady voice. You are in violation of the sovereign territory of our allies. You have committed acts of genocide against a peaceful species. You have 30 minutes to begin immediate evacuation of all Kalari populations. This is your only warning. Vextar's response was exactly what Admiral Kim had expected. The Vorthak commander laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. Human, you are far from your home and greatly outnumbered. I have 23 warships to your 12. I suggest you leave before. I add your bones to my collection. I'm afraid that's not possible, Admiral Kim replied. You see, the Kalari are family, and humans never abandon family. Then you will die with them, Vextar snarled. All Kalari will be processed immediately. Your interference only hastens their death. The communication ended. On the planet below, Vorthak soldiers received new orders. Kill the prisoners now. Don't wait for the processing centers. Start the extermination immediately. Admiral Kim watched as alarms began flashing on Vorthak ships. He saw ground installations powering up their weapons. The enemy was preparing for battle. Sir, his tactical officer reported, Vorthak forces are moving to accelerate the killing. They're not going to wait. Admiral Kim looked at the tactical display one more time, at the 12 human ships facing a larger enemy force, at the planet below where innocent people were about to die. He thought of honor, of friendship, of the debt that could only be repaid with blood. All ships, he said quietly into his communicator. Execute Operation Thunderburst. Show them the rage of the storm. The battle for Nethvar was about to begin, and the Vorthak were about to learn what happened when someone threatened humanity's family. The first tungsten rod hit Vorthak Command Station 7 at 90% the speed of light. The impact created a flash of light that could be seen from orbit. When the light faded, the entire military complex was gone. Only a crater of molten metal remained. Admiral Kim had opened the battle with humanity's most devastating weapon: kinetic bombardment. Simple tungsten rods dropped from orbit and accelerated to incredible speeds. No explosive was needed. The impact energy was enough to level mountains. Target the shield generators first, Admiral Kim ordered. Make them helpless, then destroy them. Wing Commander Tae Yang Choi led the first wave of fighters in their attack run on the Vorthak fleet. His pilots flew ships that were faster and more maneuverable than anything the Vorthak had ever seen. "Remember the plague," Choi called out over the radio as his squadron dove toward the enemy ships. It became the battle cry of the human forces, a reminder of why they were fighting. The Vorthak ships tried to raise their shields, but the human fighters were already among them. Precise laser strikes took out the exposed shield generators. One by one, the massive Vorthak warships became defenseless. "This is impossible," Commander Vextar screamed from his bridge. "Their fighters are too fast. Their weapons are too accurate." His tactical officer was panicking. "Sir, we've lost shields on 8 ships. The humans are using some kind of guided projectiles. Our point defense can't stop them." Vextar had never faced human military technology before. The Vorthak Empire usually fought primitive species with simple weapons. They were not prepared for humanity's advanced targeting systems and precision weapons. "Launch all fighters," Vextar ordered. "Overwhelm them with numbers." But the Vorthak fighters were no match for human pilots. The humans had trained for years in complex combat simulations. They knew how to work together as a team. They could think and adapt faster than their enemies. Captain Min-Ho Lee's Special Forces teams were already on the planet. They had been inserted during the night while the space battle raged above. Their mission was to secure the processing facilities where the Kalari were being held. "Alpha Team, take the North facility," Captain Lee ordered through his helmet radio. "Bravo Team, you have the South. Remember, we're here to save lives, not take prisoners." Sergeant Hyojin Kim led Alpha Team toward Processing Facility 3. Inside, Vorthak guards were preparing to begin the mass killing. They had herded the Kalari into large chambers and were setting up the execution equipment. The facility's outer defenses were strong: thick walls, automated turrets, energy barriers. But the Vorthak had designed them to keep prisoners in, not to keep attackers out. "Plasma charges set," one of Kim's soldiers reported. "Ready to breach." "Do it," Kim ordered. The explosion blew a hole through the facility wall. Human soldiers in advanced power armor poured through the gap. Their weapons were designed to punch through Vorthak armor like paper. The Vorthak guards inside had never seen anything like the human assault troops. The powered armor made each soldier as strong as 10 normal fighters. Their weapons fired guided rounds that could turn corners and track moving targets. "Surrender!" one Vorthak guard shouted in broken human language. "We surrender." "Too late for that," Sergeant Kim replied coldly. Her weapon never stopped firing. "You should have thought about surrender before you started murdering innocents." The battle inside the facility was over in minutes. The Vorthak guards were dead or fleeing. Kim and her team found the Kalari huddled in the execution chambers, terrified and confused. "We're here to take you home," Kim said, kneeling down beside a group of Kalari children. She had learned basic Kalari phrases during the journey to Nethvar. "The humans remember our friendship." Deho could hardly believe what he was seeing. He had given up hope years ago. But now soldiers in strange armor were cutting through their prison doors. The sounds of battle echoed from outside. "Humans?" he whispered to Sunmi. "But how?" "Your message," Sunmi said, tears flowing down her face. "Someone heard your message." Young Su, the child born in captivity, stared up at Sergeant Kim with wide eyes. "Are you really going to save us?" "That's the plan, little one," Kim replied gently. Then she spoke into her radio. Alpha team to all units. Facility 3 is secure. Beginning evacuation of approximately 300 Kalari. But the rescue was far from over. In space, the battle continued to rage. The human fleet had destroyed half the Vorthak ships, but the enemy was fighting back with desperate fury. A Vorthak heavy cruiser managed to get close to the human carrier Busan. Its massive guns opened fire, tearing holes in the carrier's hull. Atmosphere vented into space as the ship's crew fought to save their vessel. "Busan is hit," reported Admiral Kim's communications officer. "They've lost main power and their fighter bay is compromised." Admiral Kim watched as Wing Commander Choi's fighters moved to protect the damaged carrier, but more Vorthak ships were closing in. The human fleet was outnumbered and taking heavy damage. "Sir," Colonel Insu Park called from the tactical station, "Commander Vextar's flagship is moving toward the planet. If he gets into the atmosphere, he could target the rescue teams directly." Admiral Kim made a quick decision. "Take us after." "Him! Ramming speed!" "Sir?" the helmsman asked, unsure he had heard correctly. "You heard me. Put us between Vextar and the planet, whatever it takes." The Incheon's Wrath, humanity's most powerful dreadnought, turned toward the Vorthak flagship. The two massive ships approached each other like ancient warriors preparing for single combat. On the planet, more rescue teams had reached the processing facilities. Captain Lee's forces had saved over 1,000 Kalari, but there were still thousands more in the remaining camps. Boram's resistance group had joined the human soldiers. Her improvised weapons were no match for Vorthak technology, but her knowledge of the facilities was invaluable. "There's a hidden chamber in Facility 1, she told Captain Lee. "That's where they keep the children. Maybe 200 of them." Lee nodded grimly. "We'll get them out. All of them." But as the rescue continued, something terrible was happening in Commander Vextar's flagship. Faced with certain defeat, the Vorthak commander had decided on one final act of spite. "Activate the planetary destruction device," he ordered his remaining crew. "Sir?" His tactical officer hesitated. "That will kill everyone on the planet, including our own forces." "Better that than let the humans claim victory," Vextar snarled. "If I cannot have this world, then no one can." The planetary destruction device was a Vorthak doomsday weapon. It would drill deep into Nethvar's crust and detonate the planet's core. The explosion would crack the world apart and kill every living thing on it. Dr. Yunji Park detected the weapon's energy signature from her station aboard the Incheon's Wrath. "Admiral, massive energy buildup on the Vorthak flagship. It's some kind of geological weapon." "How long until it fires?" Admiral Kim demanded. 20 minutes, maybe less." Admiral Kim stared at the tactical display. The human fleet was scattered across the system, fighting the remaining Vorthak ships. The rescue teams on the planet could never evacuate all the Kalari in 20 minutes. If the weapon fired, everyone would die. "Options?" he asked his staff. Engineer Dong-Wook Lim studied the sensor readings. "The weapon is powered by the flagship's main reactor. If we could overload that reactor, it would destroy the ship and neutralize the weapon," Dr. Park finished. "But it would require a massive energy surge, more than our weapons can deliver from this distance." "What about a collision?" Admiral Kim asked quietly. "Could we ram the flagship and overload our own reactor at the moment of impact?" The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what the Admiral was suggesting. A suicide attack. The Incheon's Wrath and her entire crew would be destroyed, but it might save the planet. "Sir," his communications officer said, "I'm receiving messages from the other ships. Every captain is volunteering for the ramming mission." Admiral Kim smiled sadly. "Good soldiers, all of them. Tell them I appreciate the offer, but this is my decision. Signal the fleet to continue the evacuation. Every minute counts now." He turned to his crew. "Anyone who wants to transfer to another ship has 60 seconds to get to the escape pods." No one moved. Not a single member of the crew left their post. "It's been an honor serving with you," Admiral Kim said. The Inchin's wrath turned toward the Vorthak flagship and began its final approach. On the planet below, the rescue teams worked frantically to save as many Kalari as possible. Dae-ho found himself helping to carry wounded Kalari to the human transport ships. For the first time in 3 years, he felt hope. Real hope. The humans had come. They had remembered their friendship. "Why?" he asked Sergeant Kim as they loaded another group of survivors. "Why did you risk so much for us?" Kim looked at him through her helmet visor. "Because that's what family does for each other. And your family now." Above them, the final act of the battle was about to begin. Admiral Kim's flagship raced toward its target, ready to make the ultimate sacrifice to save an entire world. The storm of human rage was about to reach its peak. The Inchin's wrath accelerated toward the Vorthak flagship like a guided missile. Admiral Kim stood on his bridge, watching the enemy ship grow larger on the main screen. 15 minutes until the planet-killer weapon would fire. 14, 13. "All decks, prepare for impact," Admiral Kim announced over the ship's communication system. "It's been an honor serving with all of you." Engineer Dongwook Lim worked frantically at his station, preparing the reactor overload sequence. "Admiral, I can set the reactor to go critical at the moment of collision. The explosion should be big enough to neutralize their weapon." "Do it," Admiral Kim ordered. On the planet below, Rescue Coordinator Mi Young-song was organizing the evacuation of thousands of Kalari. Human transport ships landed at the processing facilities as fast as they could. Each ship could carry maybe 200 people. There were still over 3,000 Kalari scattered across the planet. "We can't get them all," Captain Lee reported grimly. "Even if we had more time, we don't have enough ships." Song looked at the streams of Kalari families being loaded onto the transports, children who had never known freedom, adults who had given up hope, elderly Kalari who could barely walk after years of forced labor. "Then we save who we can," she said, "and we make sure their sacrifice means something." In the hidden chamber that Bo-Ram had told them about, Sergeant Kim's team found 200 Kalari children. They were the youngest survivors, some barely 5 years old. They had been kept separate from the adults, probably for special experiments. Young Su was among them. When he saw the human soldiers, his eyes went wide with wonder. "Are you really going to take us away from here?" he asked. "Yes," Sergeant Kim promised. "You're never coming back to this place." But even as the rescues continued, time was running out. The Vorthak flagship's weapon was almost ready to fire. The energy readings were climbing toward the critical level. Commander Vextar stood on his bridge and watched the human dreadnought approaching. He could see what they were planning, a ramming attack. The humans were going to sacrifice their biggest ship to stop him. "Fools," he hissed. "They will die for nothing. The weapon will fire before they reach us." His tactical officer checked the readings. "Sir, 8 minutes to weapon deployment. The human ship will impact in 6 minutes. "Perfect. They will watch their rescue mission fail before they die." But Vextar had underestimated human engineering. Captain Lee's commandos had planted explosive charges throughout the Vorthak ground installations. When those charges detonated simultaneously, they created a massive electromagnetic pulse that disrupted the flagship's targeting systems. "What happened?" Vextar demanded as warning lights flashed across his bridge. "The ground explosions have interfered with our targeting array," his officer reported. "We're losing lock on the planetary target." "Fix it! Now!" But the human dreadnought was already too close. Admiral Kim could see individual details on the Vorthak ship's hull, gun turrets, sensor arrays, the bridge where Vextar waited. 30 seconds to impact, reported the helmsman. "Reactor overload ready," Engineer Lim announced. "On your command, Admiral." Admiral Kim thought about his daughter, about the plague that had almost taken her, about the Kalari scientists who had worked day and night to create the medicine that saved her life. The debt was about to be paid in full. Now, he said quietly. The Inchin's wrath struck the Vorthak flagship at the exact moment that its reactor went critical. The explosion lit up the entire system like a new star being born. The blast wave destroyed both ships instantly and created an electromagnetic storm that fried every piece of Vorthak equipment on the planet. But something beautiful happened in that moment of destruction. The explosion created a cascade of charged particles that interacted with Nethvar's magnetic field. The result was an aurora unlike anything ever seen before. Streams of brilliant color danced across the sky in patterns that seemed almost alive. For the first time in 3 years, Young-Soo and the other Kalari children saw something beautiful in their sky. "Look!" Young-Soo pointed upward from the transport ship's window. "The lights are dancing!" Daeho sat beside him, tears streaming down his face. The aurora reminded him of the flowers in his old garden. Purple and blue and gold, swirling together in perfect harmony. "That's Admiral Kim," Sergeant Kim told the children. "He's saying goodbye." The remaining Vorthak ships in the system either fled or surrendered. Without their flagship and their commander, they had no stomach for continued fighting. The human fleet had won a complete victory. Dr. Park coordinated the medical treatment of the rescued Kalari. Many were sick or injured from years of abuse. But they were alive, and they were free. "How many did we save?" Admiral Kim's second-in-command asked over the radio from his ship. Mi Young-song checked her numbers. 4,237. Not all of them, but it's more than we hoped for 3 days ago. Captain Lee's ground teams spent the next week hunting down any remaining Vorthak forces on the planet. They found evidence of atrocities that made even hardened soldiers sick. Mass graves, experimentation laboratories, torture chambers. "Make sure this gets documented," Lee told his intelligence teams. "The galaxy needs to know what happened here, what the Vorthak are capable of." The aurora continued to dance in Nethvar's sky for weeks after the battle. The Kalari called it the light of friendship. Scientists said it was just ionized particles, but the Kalari knew better. It was a sign that some bonds could never be broken. 3 months later, Nethvar was beginning to heal. Human engineering teams helped repair the damage done by Vorthak mining operations. Kalari botanists worked to restore the poisoned soil. Green plants were growing again in places that had been barren wasteland. Daeho had a new garden now. It was small, but the flowers were starting to bloom. Purple ones just like before. He spent his mornings tending them and his afternoons teaching Young-Soo about the old ways of growing things. "Will the humans stay?" Young-Soo asked one day as they watered the seedlings. "Some will," Daeho replied, "but not as conquerors or rulers, as friends, as family." Sunmi had a new job working with the rebuilt communication center. But now, instead of sending desperate calls for help, she broadcast messages of hope to other worlds. The story of Nethvar's liberation was spreading across the galaxy. Other species that were suffering under oppression began sending their own messages to human space. Each one carried the same desperate hope. Don't forget us. And humanity never did. The Seventh Fleet was officially disbanded after the Nethvar incident. The Earth Council couldn't publicly approve of what Admiral Kim had done, even though privately, many of them were proud of it. But every ship captain and crew member who had participated was quietly reassigned to new positions where they could continue their work of protecting the innocent. Captain Lee formed a new Special Forces unit dedicated to rescue operations. Wing Commander Choi trained a new generation of pilots in advanced combat techniques. Dr. Park established a medical corps that specialized in treating alien species. They called themselves the Ghost Fleet. Officially, they didn't exist. Unofficially, they became the sword and shield of the defenseless across the galaxy. A year after the liberation, a memorial was built on Nethvar for the humans who had died in the rescue mission. It was placed in the center of Daeho's new garden, surrounded by healing flowers and trees that reached toward the sky. The memorial was simple, just a stone with names carved into it. But at the top, in both human and Kalari script, were the words that had started it all. Don't forget us. Below that, in larger letters, was humanity's response. We never will. Young Su, now 9 years old and growing strong in the clean air of a free world, often played near the memorial. He had learned to read both human and Kalari writing. Sometimes he would trace the letters with his finger and ask Daeho what they meant. They mean that good people help other good people, Daeho would explain. They mean that friendship is stronger than fear. They mean that no one has to suffer alone, as long as there are those who remember what kindness is. The aurora still appeared sometimes in Nethvar's night sky. Not as often as in the weeks after the battle, but often enough to remind everyone of the price that had been paid for their freedom. And across the galaxy, on worlds where the strong oppressed the weak, a new hope was growing. The humans had shown that rescue was possible, that someone would come for those who could not save themselves. The Ghost Fleet continued its work in the shadows, carrying the torch lit by Admiral Kim's sacrifice. They were the storm that came for those who preyed upon the innocent. They were the answer to every desperate call for help. They were humanity at its best, protectors of the weak, defenders of the innocent. A reminder that in a universe full of darkness, there would always be those who chose to be the light. The Kalari had learned a valuable lesson during their years of suffering and their moment of salvation. They were not alone. In the vast emptiness of space, friendship could bridge any distance. Love could overcome any enemy. And somewhere in the night, when the aurora danced and the memorial flowers swayed in the evening breeze, you could almost hear Admiral Kim's voice carried on the wind. Family never abandons family.